Yeah.
Scott Satterfield worked his magic and surprised everyone last year by transforming a 2-10 Louisville team to an 8-5 Louisville team that won the Music City Bowl over Mississippi State. Now the question is, how does Satterfield follow that up in 2020? Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, the best kept secret in college football. Today, bringing you our 2020 Louisville Cardinals football predictions. As always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share these videos as we continue to progress not just through the ACC, but through every Power 5 conference. And of course, check out everything in the description as well, as you can sign up for exclusive content on our website, thegridironexpert.com, and follow us on our social media at Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So lucky for Scott Satterfield, his second act has a great chance to be even better than his first. And a major reason of that is because of all the production that Louisville returns from that 8-5 team he had last year. And we look at their offense, which was the strength for them last year and will certainly be the strength for them again this year. This is an offense that averaged 33.1 points per game last year and now returns their quarterback in Micale Cunningham, returns their star running back in Javian Hawkins, who rushed for over 1,500 yards last year, and they return two of their top three wide receivers from last year in Tutu, Atwell, and Fitzpatrick. This was a Louisville offense, guys, that averaged over 200 rushing yards per game and over 200 passing yards per game. They were very, very balanced, and they have a lot of talent and a lot of speed where if your defense isn't prepared for it, they're certainly going to make you pay. Defensively, though, that's going to be the entire key to Louisville's season. Whether or not they finish around 7-5 again, or maybe they take that next step to get to 8-4, 9-3, or maybe even 10-2, as some people are calling for. They returned 7 starters on that side of the ball. They allowed 33.4 points per game last year. You're not going to win games when you're allowing that many points. All 5 of Louisville's losses last year came by double digits. So all the losses they were in, they really weren't in the game. They lost by double digits in all 5 of their losses. They're going to be led by C.J. Avery, who returns in the linebacking core after leading the team in tackles last year. And they also have Monty Montgomery as well, who led the team with 5 sacks. So that 33.4 points per game, if you can get that down to about 26.4, if you can cut a touchdown off of that, that could result in maybe 1 or 2 extra wins on Louisville's record going into 2020. Slight improvements, all they need on the defensive side of the ball. And they might need it right here in Week 1 against North Carolina State. So they jump right into ACC conference play, taking on a Wolfpack squad that Louisville defeated 34-20 last year on the road. That was a bad Wolfpack team, guys. That was a bad NC State squad led by Dave Doeren. And we knew that in 2019 that North Carolina State was going to take a step back. They weren't going to be a 9-win team like we'd seen in years past. So I do think they're going to bounce back if they can find consistency at the quarterback position. They've got Devin Leary, who showed signs of promise last year, but this was a NC State team that averaged just a little over 22 points per game last year, and now only returns 4 starters on defense that allowed 30.1 points per game last year. Once again, if you have a very vulnerable defense, Louisville's going to make you pay for it, and I do think the Cardinals make NC State pay for it, especially with it being at home on a Thursday night. So Louisville opens up the season 1-0. They then take on Clemson. Look, we know that when you have Clemson on your schedule, you need to be scared because they are arguably the best team in the country, or at least one of them. But what a lot of people don't realize is that this game right here on September 12th in Week 2, could decide the ACC Atlantic Division. It very well could, because these are arguably the top 2 teams in that division right now, Clemson and Louisville. And if the Cardinals somehow go into Death Valley and pull off this upset, they're going to need Clemson to slip up a few more times, because Louisville's going to have that tiebreaker over the Tigers. So they'd have to slip up a few. Clemson would be having to hope that Louisville slips up because they no longer control their own destiny. Unfortunately, we don't have to go through all of that because I don't think Louisville pulls off this victory. They take a loss at Clemson. You're dealing with Trevor Lawrence here. You're dealing with Travis Etienne. You're dealing with Amari Rodgers. You're dealing with a Brent Venables defense on the road. If Louisville's defense isn't up to par, at least this early in the season, that Clemson offense is going to make them pay. So they lose to Clemson. Not many people are going to defeat the Tigers at all this year, if any. They're now 2-1 because we give them a win over Murray State, and we're going to give them a win over Western Kentucky as well. A team that Louisville did defeat by 17 last year, but a team led by Tyson Helton that you do not want to overlook. That's why we did not give them an automatic win there, because Western Kentucky was a very good squad in 2019. And with that type of offense, once again, you could see a similar shootout. I just don't see them being able to defeat Scott Satterfield's squad this year. They then get into the bulk of ACC play here, and that starts with back-to-back road games against Syracuse and Boston College. So it could be worse. It could be a worse stretch of back-to-back road games than Syracuse and the Eagles here. You start with the Orange. Louisville defeated them 56-34 last year. It was just a back-and-forth game. Really no defense. And that was kind of the story of both these teams' life last year. Was Louisville didn't have much of a defense, and neither did Syracuse, who missed out on a bowl game after going 10-3 in 2018. So once again, a game like this in the Carrier Dome, defense is going to be the key. Last year you saw no defense. This year could be very well the same. Which defense is going to step up and make the most stops? Right now I have a little bit more faith in Louisville's defense. Even though it's in the Carrier Dome, you have to be concerned with Syracuse's offensive line play, which was abysmal last year. Tommy DeVito was the most sacked quarterback in the nation last year. And I do like that Louisville has 7 returning starters on the defensive side of the ball, while Syracuse loses 7 starters from the defensive side of the ball. They lose 7 big playmakers from last year's squad that really wasn't all that good. So Louisville goes on the road. They get a win over Syracuse. And we give them a win over Boston College here, who I do think is going to be in for a rough first season under Jeff Hafley. Questions at the quarterback position. They lose A.J. Dillon. They do have David Bailey, who rushed for over 800 yards last year. But the running game is not going to be able to pile up the win for Boston College. They're going to have to find some sort of balance. The defense can only do so much. And I don't even know if that defense, that's usually decent for Boston College, is going to be enough to stop this Louisville team who beat them 41-39 last year. That was a better BC team than we're going to see this year. So Louisville gets back-to-back road wins over these ACC opponents going into their bye week on October 17th. Coming out of the bye week, they face off against Florida State. And really, guys, when you look at it, these back 6, the final 6 games, are the toughest stretch for Louisville. Really. Clemson's tough up here in the first 6. But the back 6, Florida State, Virginia Tech, Virginia, Wake Forest, Notre Dame, Kentucky, that's when you're really going to see how good this Cardinals team is. That's when you're going to see what they're made of. Because the first 6, they probably should start 5-1. 4-2, worst case scenario, but 5-1 seems more reasonable. They come off their bye week, they take on Florida State, a team like Boston College that's going to be led by a brand new head coach. Mike Norvell now taking over in Tallahassee. Louisville lost to the Seminoles 35-24 last year on the road, and that's actually a fairly respectable showing, all things considered. We know Tallahassee is not an easy place to play. But like Syracuse, Florida State needs improved offensive line play. Their defense needs to take a step up, and they do return 10 starters on that side of the ball. But I do question how well their offensive line plays, and I do question how well their quarterback plays, as they have some questions there. Can James Blackman take that next step in Mike Norvell's system? A lot of changes coming through. Florida State will improve big time, but not enough to come on the road to Louisville, facing off against a Cardinals team that has a week of rest and is high on themselves after starting 5-1. I do think Norvell's squad loses here on the road. And going into the final 5 games of the season, Louisville's sitting at 6-1. Keep in mind, if Clemson were to slip up somewhere, could pose an interesting little race in the ACC Atlantic, something we haven't seen in a while. And sitting at 6-1, Louisville is probably top 15 by this point, contending for a New Year's Six bowl game. And if somehow they finish 11-1, maybe college football playoff. They get Virginia Tech on October 31st. They get Virginia Tech on Halloween. This is a huge, huge, huge game, guys. Huge game. Because this is a good Virginia Tech squad. One that returns 19 starters from last year. This is a Virginia Tech team that is one of the most experienced teams in the country. I question how well Louisville's defense prepares for a dual-threat quarterback in Hendon Hooker. 13 touchdowns and just 2 interceptions last year, 5 rushing touchdowns. A Virginia Tech team that averaged 30.8 points per game last year. So once again, this is one of those games where Louisville's defense is really going to have to step up. Really going to have to step up here. So while I do like Louisville having the slight offensive edge, I like Virginia Tech. Even though they don't have Bud Foster, I like Virginia Tech's defensive edge. And I'm going to give the Hokies a win here on the road. I don't think that Louisville will have enough to take down Virginia Tech. I don't think their offense is going to have enough to maybe exploit what's going to be a very, very strong defense. And I think the Hokies, Justin Fuente, they have their mind set on a 9 or 10 win season. And to do that, they're going to have to come on the road and beat the Cardinals. I think they do just that. Hungover, after a devastating loss to the Hokies, I think Louisville drops a game to Virginia as well. So they lose the 2 Virginia teams. I know that's going to come as a shock to some. I know that's going to come as a disappointment to some. Because Louisville did defeat Virginia last year 28-21. And that was with a Virginia team that won the Coastal, that made the Orange Bowl, that had Bryce Perkins. I get it. Here's some key numbers for you, though. Virginia does return 9 starters defensively. So already that's a huge boost. You're facing 2 very strong defenses, maybe 3, as Florida State also returns 10 starters on their defense. But listen to this. Louisville had a 10.11% sack rate. 10.11% sack rate on standard downs, guys. So you had a 10.11% sack rate, meaning that percent of the time they were allowing sacks. Virginia Tech was slightly better than that, 11.1% on standard downs. So you got an 11.1% sack rate versus a 10.11% sack rate. Virginia's defense is going to, I think, wreak havoc on this Louisville offensive line. They're going to be able to break through and get a few key plays in the backfield, especially with a few holes to replace offensively, such as Mekhi Becton. They don't have much depth there either, so this late in the season, if they lose a few offensive linemen, Louisville could be in trouble up front, and I think Virginia takes advantage of that. So even though they lose some big starters offensively, I think their defense bails them out at home. A little bit of revenge as well after that 7-point loss in 2019. So they fall to the Cavaliers, but bounce back. Scott Satterfield is not known to have his teams kind of derail. They don't derail. And they don't derail completely. They get a win over Wake Forest. A Wake Forest team that, yes, also returns 9 starters defensively, but offensively has a few questions outside of Sam Hartman and Sage Surratt. You got a good quarterback, you got a good wide receiver. Everything else is kind of up in the air. You need more than that. 2 players cannot make up an entire offense. So I think they get a win over Wake Forest at home, especially after Louisville went on the road and defeated them 62-59 last year. That was an absolute thriller of a game. And after Louisville went on the road and took down the Demon Deacons, I think that's when we really knew Scott Satterfield and the Cardinals are for real. They're going to be good. Maybe in 2019, but certainly down the road. I think they get a win over the Demon Deacons here. I do think they fall to Notre Dame. I do think they fall to the Fighting Irish in South Bend, a team they lost to 35-17 last year, and a Notre Dame team that is still going to be a college football playoff contender. A Notre Dame team that 2 weeks prior to this will have faced off against Clemson, but a Notre Dame team led by Ian Book, led by a very strong offensive line, led by a very strong defense, and again, led by Clark Lee at defense as defensive coordinator. So I think Notre Dame gets the win at home, which sets up the in-state showdown between Louisville and Kentucky, a game that Louisville lost 45-13 last year, allowing 521 yards of offense, 517 of which came on the ground to Layden Bowden, who was playing quarterback for the Wildcats last year. So an abysmal performance, and that really showed all the holes in this Louisville defense that, once again, if they don't improve by at least a touchdown, you could see some of these wins we have up here turn into losses very quickly. Defense, that is the key for Louisville. Kentucky should be a little bit more, stereotypical offensively. They're not going to have Lynn Bowden, a wide receiver, running their offense. Terry Wilson should be back at quarterback. You have Cavassier Smoke. You have Asim Rose at running back. This is a Kentucky team that, once again, could very well be anywhere between a 7 to 10 win team in 2020. But one of their losses, because they're not going undefeated, is going to come to Louisville. Cardinals get a win over their in-state rival, kind of avenging that loss from last year. I really think their defense takes a slight step forward, enough to shut down a Kentucky team that was just kind of confusing last year offensively. Very tough to stop last year offensively. This might be a low-scoring game, but in the end, I like Louisville's offense a little bit better. They get a win over their in-state rivals, and they finish the season 8-4. That might be disappointing to some. Some might be hoping for 9-3 or 10-2, but guys, 8-4 is a one-game improvement when you look at the regular season. A one-game improvement from 7-5 last year. So Scott Satterfield's program continues to show that they're heading in the right direction. They're going to go to a very good bowl game with this record, and if they win that, they're 9-4. It's a 9-win season, 2 years removed from a 2-10 season. So Scott Satterfield's second act, I do believe, is better than his first, and it's only going to get better from here. I can guarantee you that. So guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share these videos. Check out everything we have in the description below. Exclusive content on the website, thegridironexpert.com. Follow us on social media. Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Nothing that you want to miss, I can promise you that. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on The Gridiron Expert.